I'd like to call to order the meeting for Plaquemines Parish School Board, March 17, 2014, at Boothville Venice High School. The meeting will begin at 6:01 p.m. The invocation will be led by Reverend Giles and the pledge by Mr. Mertz. Please stand.
Lord our God, how excellent is your name in heaven and earth. We thank you as always for another blessed privilege just to be in the land of the living. Lord, we thank you for traveling grace as you brought us to this place. Now, Lord God, govern us tonight as we come to do thy will. We pray for everyone who has made a safe arrival. Bless us and keep us. In Jesus' wonderful name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nancy LaHaye, Anthony San Philip,
Here.
Joyce Lampkin,
Here.
Fran Baye Martinez,
Here.
Carlton LaFrance, Paul Lemire,
Here.
Chuck Swallow, William Mertz.
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. The
Superintendent, I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Ms. Lampkin. Any question? Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. Ad hoc and standing committee reports. Ms. Lampkin?
The meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee of Plaquemines Parish School Board scheduled for January 29, 2014 was canceled due to inclement weather. Our next meeting was held on February 6th at the Belchase Central Office. Members present were Joyce Lampkin, chairperson, and Ronald White. Member absent was Chuck Swallow. Others present were Alberta Couson and Monica Wirtz. The meeting was called to order at 4:05 p.m. Proposed salary supplement increases paid to coaches and other extracurricular, co-curricular sponsors and advisors was presented in detail by Ronald White, Finance Director. The proposal increases the supplement paid to coaches with 0 years of experience, decreases the step for each year, and keeps the supplement paid to coaches with 25 years of experience the same, thereby increasing the supplement for all coaches except those with 25 years of experience. The proposal also incorporates the following changes. Increase the supplements paid to coaches for baseball, softball, and volleyball to the same amount as basketball. Increase the scale for all assistant coaches by $500. Middle school head coaches for basketball, soccer, and track will see an increase of an additional $500. In addition to the above changes, high school cheerleading coaches will get an additional $500 at all experience levels. Add an additional stipend of $500 for competitive cheerleading or dance team coaches. Reconfigure the non-faculty coaches schedule to include, among other things, an increase for those non-faculty coaches being paid at the low end of the scale. Stipends for non-faculty coaches in playoffs will be increased to $50 per day for head coaches and $40 per day for assistant coaches, based on a 5-day work week only. Increases for other extracurricular, co-curricular advisors, sponsors, and coordinators, and the principals and the principal's discretionary supplements. The Finance Committee will recommend to the Board at the March 17, 2014 meeting to approve the new salary schedule for coaches and other extracurricular, co-curricular sponsors and advisors. Such changes to be effective for the 2014-15 school year. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 4:50 p.m.
Minutes of the meeting of the Land and Construction Committee of the Plaquemines Parish School Board held on February 18, 2014 at the Plaquemines Parish Learning Center. Members present were Chuck Swallow, Chair, Paul Lemire, Carlton LaFrance, Anthony St. Philip, and Dennis Roussel. Others present were Nancy LaHaye, Ronald White, Jim Tiedemann, Chip Vergis, and Stephanie Calamari of Vergis Rome Architects, and Chris Barker and Alan Thibodeau of HOV Services. The meeting was called to order at 3:38 p.m. The first item on the agenda was an update provided by Chuck Swallow on the status of the Rex Field to be used for South Plaquemines High School baseball team. The parish government has made improvements to the field. There is a storage container which needs to be moved away or kept. The only thing which needs to be done is to move the batting cage from Diamond Field to the Rex Field, which will be done soon. The next item was to discuss the location for the weightlifting for the boys at South Plaquemines High School. Jim Tiedemann, recovery coordinator, stated that FEMA would not object to a space under the building being used for weightlifting, but the area used should be enclosed with a temporary fence. The discussion was held regarding the repurposing the large room currently not being used adjacent to the daycare center in South Plaquemines High School. The committee recommended that board move forward with the shutting the room off from the daycare center and opening up to the interior hall, subject to a cost estimate to be provided by Chris Barker, and whether it is believed that FEMA will reimburse the cost. The next item was a discussion regarding the two proposed buildings adjacent to the Belle Chase High School softball and football fields. Paul Lemaire stated his desire to move forward with these projects, while Tony St. Philip urged to move the ad hoc committee formed to explore options for the future of Belle Chase High School be allowed to finish its work before moving forward with these projects. But he stated if the school board does construct these buildings, that the cooperative endeavor agreement entered into with the parish government be strongly worded to protect the school board's interests. Next, Chris Barker explained the details of a proposed change order for Phoenix High School, which totaled $40,733 and would be reimbursed by FEMA. The committee recommended that the board approve this change order. Next, Chris Barker gave an update of all FEMA and CDBG construction projects. Regarding the Plaquemines Parish Learning Center roof replacement, he stated that the settlement, structured in the form of a change order, is nearly complete, and the committee recommended that the board approve the settlement and allow the superintendent to sign the agreement. A special board meeting can be called to approve the settlement if it is ready to be approved prior to the next board meeting in March. Regarding Phoenix High School enhancements, CDBG projects, the committee recommended that the previously approved layout of the football field known as Plan E be rescinded and replaced with the proposed Plan D. Additionally, the school board should obtain approval from the parish government to place football field on the edge of their property located next to the high school, where a fire station is currently located. Mr. Barker then discussed the status of the other construction projects underway or soon to be underway. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 5:55 p.m.
I have minutes for our two ad hoc committee meeting. The meeting was convened at approximately 4:10 p.m. on February 4th, 2014, at the Belle Chase School Board office. Those present: Chair Nancy LaHaye, members Joyce Lampkin, Fran Martinez, President Anthony St. Philip, and Superintendent Dennis Roussel. Others in attendance: CFO Ronald White, Monica Wirtz, Alberta Couson, Plaquemines Parish Government Councilman Kirk Lapine, Stuart Gouy, Anthony Burris, Keith Hinckley, and Director of Public Services, Plaquemines Parish Government, Byron Williams, Jr. There was much discussion concerning proposed land swaps. The committee proposed a swap of lands PPSB owns, such as Burris property behind the auditorium, where Burris High School fields were before Katrina, plus the Burris and Boothville old teacher apartments and property, for the Belle Chase High School football and softball fields, plus the library property owned by PPG, because Belle Chase High is currently landlocked. The council members indicated that the library property is not doable. It was then decided that an appraisal for all aforementioned properties belonging to both entities had to be completed. Then the group would meet to discuss the options as per state law. Councilman Gouy and Burris discussed building a new Belle Chase High School. Councilman Burris discussed that after a new high school is completed, doing a complete renovation of the current high school buildings and property, move the middle school up to Belle Chase, then make a decision concerning the Belle Chase Middle School property. Mrs. LaHaye discussed property needed for a new Belle Chase High School. The councilman will look into this and get back with us. The Plaquemines Parish government could possibly donate property for this public purpose. The councilman would like to see a conceptual drawing of a new Belle Chase High School with amenities. Once all of this information is gathered and settled, The public would be surveyed by various means suggested concerning a new Belle Chase High School, uses of the current site, and possible renovation of the existing site. The question was asked as how to PPG got the property for the fire station located in front of Belle Chase Middle School. The parish attorney will look into this. The two government groups plan to meet when more information has been obtained. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 5:25 p.m. The second meeting of the ad hoc committee was convened on February 26, 2014, at 3:45 p.m. at the Belle Chase School Board office. Members present: Chair Nancy LaHaye, Fran Baye Martinez, Anthony St. Philip, and Superintendent Dennis Roussel. Others in attendance: CFO Ronna White, Mary Ann Bulott, Monica Wirtz, Plaquemines Parish Government Councilman Keith Hinckley, and Anthony Burris. It was learned that no appraisals had been done on the Belle Chase football site or the Burris land because the estimated difference in value could not be donated by the council to the school board as first reported, and therefore a swap is no longer an option. The PPSB Construction Committee had added this item to their agenda and voted to enter into a cooperative agreement with Plaquemines Parish government and proceed with Mr. Roussel's committee's original plan with an estimated cost of $2 million. After much discussion, the ad hoc committee voted not to do a cooperative agreement, but to lease the land from the Plaquemines Parish government and to lease PPSB Burris property to Plaquemines Parish government, with both leases being long-term. The councilman present will get a layout of the property
South Plaquemines Junior High School. He was assisted by Ms. Sarah Heim and Ms. Laura Patman. Adrian.
Lately, it seems like all of the news commentators are saying bad things about our country. On Fox News, a man was talking about how the government let a small group of atheists redefine the meaning of our freedom of religion. For months, people have been talking about how the government is illegally forcing everyone to buy health insurance, which they can't afford. On CNN, there was even a large group of people yelling that the U.S. Constitution is nothing but a farce. It made me wonder what our founding fathers would think if they heard all these people complaining about the words they wrote with such huge hope that all U.S. citizens would be treated equally and fairly. The first word that came to my mind was ingratitude. But then I realized that these people were simply exercising their right to free speech, which of course is one of the rights given to us in the First Amendment of our Constitution. The First Amendment is said to be the most controversial of all the amendments. Some people say it's the amendment that gives us the most freedom. However, many others say it's the amendment that causes the most heartache, injustice, and violence, mainly because it gives Americans the right to say whatever they want, no matter how hateful, insulting, or disrespectful it is to someone else. Our free speech does have some exceptions like obscene speech and slanderous speech, but to me, the type of speech that should be at the very top of the list isn't even on the list. Hate speech is any form of speech that attacks a person or a group of people based on their race, religion, disability, gender, or sexual orientation for the sole purpose of degrading, intimidating, or inciting violence against them. Hate speech is destroying our country. I am a firm believer in free speech, but I think hate speech should be illegal in our country like it is in many others. In no way did our founding fathers mean to include such infectious, hateful speech when they added free speech to their First Amendment. According to the U.S. Department of Immigration, it is the duty of all citizens to speak up if they perceive anything that's threatening the well-being of our nation. Well, hate speech is destroying our country, so I'm speaking up. The U.S. Constitution is the uppermost law in our nation. All the other laws come from the Constitution in some way. I remember when studying the Constitution in elementary school, I pictured George Washington and all the others sitting in a big room making up the rules. I thought it must have been pretty exciting for them. I mean, how often do you get to make up rules for your own country? I later discovered that making up the laws and regulations that all the delegates would agree upon was quite hard for the founding fathers. They agreed that all U.S. citizens should be treated fairly, but there's a lot of different views on what fairly actually meant. They all had their own ideas on how the government should be constructed, so to solve any disagreements, they had to compromise. My mom and dad and I could hardly agree on what to have for supper each night. So from May to September of 1787, the delegates finally came up with what they wanted. Even then, they knew that what they had was not perfect, so they came up with an amending process so things could be changed when needed. The freedom of speech is included in the First Amendment of the Constitution. When I read the First Amendment, in no way can I see how so many people interpret it as giving them the right to say whatever hateful, degrading thing they want. I found this quote by George Washington. If freedom without the freedom of speech, then dumb and silent may be led, like sheep to the slaughter. It sounds really awesome, but I don't think he was referring to the same free speech that we know today. So why did our founding fathers want us to have free speech? I actually found the answer to that question. I found that the government our forefathers lived under previously was very barbaric, with little compassion for the commoners, or normal people. British people were often arrested or even executed on the spot if they spoke out against the king. Our forefathers wanted us to be able to speak our opinions without the fear of such violent retaliation. They no longer wanted a government that ruled the people. They wanted the people to rule the government. They gave us free speech to end violence, not to create more. The freedom of speech gives us the opportunity to voice our opinions regarding our country. But hate speech should not be included in our right to free speech. Thank you.
Good job, Adrian.
Item 3, board members' time for non-agenda and agenda items. First of all, I think Adrian deserves another round of applause. That was a great job. I wanted to thank everyone for coming out this evening and thank Ms. Proud for such a fine spread that you put on for us. The weather's kind of dreary and kind of chilly. Hopefully everybody will make it home safely. I'd also like to recognize two of our old board members, our former board members, Mr. Roussel and Ms. Barrios. Thank them for coming out this evening. And if anybody's got anything else to add, Mr. Swallow.
I'd like everybody to know about the South Plaquemines High School band marched for the first time in their first 2 Mardi Gras parades this year, and there was about a dozen bands in the parade, and they actually won second in the competition. The band isn't nearly as big as the rest of them, but we won second. That was kind of impressive. Just wanted to do a good congratulations about that.
Mr. St. Philip,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like for
Discussion and appropriate action in regard to putting out the bid and constructing 2 athletic-related buildings adjacent to Belchase High School to be paid out of the PPSB General Fund pending the lease agreement between the Plaquemines Parish School Board and the Plaquemines Parish government.
So offered.
Got a motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Mr. Lemare. Mr. Russell, did we ever get an estimate, a more solid estimate on this project?
About 2.3 million, but we are working on that now. We met with architects today.
Okay.
So it was in around the figure that we thought it would be.
And we won't be doing any construction until the land gets sealed up with the lease, right?
As soon as we get that lease, we'll start the construction, but we don't want to hold anything up concerning the projects. But we will not start the project until we get that lease agreement from the Plaquemines Parish government and the school board.
Okay.
And we're working on that now.
Any other questions? Any opposed? It's a good question.
Do what?
Are we gonna have call a special meeting to review the lease?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, Ms. Lampy, definitely.
Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Discussion and appropriate action in regard to approval of 2014-15 school calendar and waive of the second reading, Ms. Alberta Cusson.
So offered.
Motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Ms. Lampkin.
The calendar together was to contact the teacher to get input as to anything they would like to see in the calendar. Once that was received, 2 drafts were put together. Then a parent, teacher, and 2 board members, Ms. Langton and Ms. Martinez, attended, and there was discussion about the calendar. It was put to a teacher vote, and draft A was selected, which you have in front of you.
Any questions? Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Cusson. Discussion and appropriate action in regard to modifying stipends for coaches and extracurricular monitors and advisors effective for the 2014-15 school year. Mr. Ron White.
Offer for discussion purposes.
Motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Ms. Lampkin.
Good evening. I'm not going to read to you all the details. It's all summarized in the board packet. Ms. Lampkin read all of from the meeting. I just wanted to mention, though, the reason this came about is Ms. Lampkin had expressed to me a concern that our coaches and other extracurricular advisors were not perhaps making as much as they were in other districts. So she asked me to do a survey of some of the adjoining districts and other districts in the state to see how our coaches' stipends compared to the others. And what we found was that our coaches with the most experience compared well to the other districts, but the coaches with the lesser amount of experience did not compare well to the other districts. So everything we did from that point on in our various meetings was to try to pull up the stipends for the coaches with the less amount of experience so that they would be making amounts comparable to other districts. And then that moved into the various sports and trying to line up the various sports with what we consider the amount of time that the coaches had to put into it, as well as the other extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So that was the reason that we put this all together, and it is effective for next school year.
Mr. White, long and short of it, how does this impact our budget?
The best estimate I could come up with was probably about $40,000 a year, because we have between 90 and 100 people that this affects. I didn't go through and check each one, but some were as low as maybe an additional $125 a year for some of the club coordinators and advisors, up to as much as maybe $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 a year for some of the coaches that were on the lower end of the scale be seeing an increase. So I was estimating around maybe an average of $300 a year, which would put us in the neighborhood of about $30,000 plus benefits, probably around $40,000 a year.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Are the first and second good with appropriate action? Again, any other questions? Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ware.
Thank you.
Discussion and appropriate action in regard to a change order for construction modifications on the Phoenix Pre-K-12 construction project.
So offer.
Motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Mr. Swallow.
I believe everybody has a copy of the change order. If you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions? Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Board. Discussion and appropriate action in regard to authorizing the superintendent to proceed with execution of a settlement agreement and a material change order to initiate warranty roof replacement at Plaquemines Parish School Board Learning Center at contractor's expense.
Motion offered by Mr. Lemare, seconded by Mr. Swallow.
I don't have a copy of the agreement because it's still in the process of being drafted, but I believe we're down to finishing, putting the final details on one paragraph. This agreement would release the contractor, VCC, who built the Learning Center, from any further responsibilities for the roof. And in exchange for that, they are hiring a company to put a completely new roof with a completely new warranty on the building. And I think that's the long and the short of it. We should be getting a brand new roof right away. I think the agreement could probably be signed before the end of the week, provided the board gives the superintendent authorization to execute the agreement.
Is this just a change for sheet metal or all the way down to the subroof?
This is all the way down to the subroof, and because it's taken so long, there's actually been a lot of concern about whether the subroof is now rusted. So we had to take a lot of extra time to hammer out the agreement so that if there is unforeseen conditions underneath the surface that we can't see right now, that the contractor will pay those costs. And this agreement's about I think the cost of the roof is close to $600,000.
Any other questions? Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Clarification and appropriate action in regard to rescinding approval granted of February 3rd, 2014 board meeting item 4.09, to proceed with the development of schematic design E for athletic fields at the new Phoenix Pre-K-12 facility, to approve development of schematic design D.
So offer.
Motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Mr. Swallow.
Just the way the school lays out, we had been talking at one point in time about the D plan, and I think we got confused and got the E plan in its place. The D plan, though, does extend over on the fire department ground a little bit, and it's only grass that goes over there, and it's already ground that the school board is currently using for playground space. So, but that plan fits better on the site with the facilities that are there. I'm not sure if you got a copy of the plan in the back. There's also a sewer manhole that if we use that, if we use the altered plan, we end up missing a sewer manhole, and we wouldn't have to spend money moving the manhole, and we could actually be building athletic things with that money instead of doing something underground we're just having to do because there's not enough space.
Any other questions?
I have one, Chris. Where is the Head Start playground going to be?
The Head Start playground is, there's actually a fenced-in area that's real close to there's a ramp on the back side of the school that goes down to the pre-K area, or that goes up to on the back side of the school, there's a Head Start, first grade, kindergarten, and pre-K room on the back of the building. And there's a private ramp that serves that part of the building that won't have older students on it. And there's a ramp that goes down to where the bus loading area is. And there's actually a configuration of gates there so that the teachers can close those gates and direct the kids into the fenced-in play area as opposed to being able to get out on the driveway or anything. So there's a fenced-in area provided at the school. There's, I think they don't have a lot of equipment, but there's funds to purchase equipment if they need it.
Chris, these buildings, the portable buildings that are in use right now, are those in the current location where the field's going to be?
Yes, sir. They are, a good number of those buildings are where the field would be located. And then some of the buildings are actually in the plan to remain where they're at. One of the buildings would be converted that already has a restroom in it, would be converted to public restrooms. One would be converted to a concession stand. Those plans haven't been, those are things that you would want to do in the future. But right now what we're doing is saying demo part of the buildings, leave part of the buildings, and we put in the football field with the CDBG project.
Who's going to demo the buildings?
That's to be decided. That's a Ron question.
We would have to put that out to bid. Our plan is to hopefully have both Port Sulphur and Phoenix sites demoed at the same time, or at least as one project. We have the architects working on it now. But one thing we will have to get them will be definite buildings that we want to keep. Otherwise, we want to get the buildings demoed as part of one project. With the Phoenix project, the instructions being that Phoenix go first, since it's more urgent in order to get the other projects for the football field built.
Are we going to try to sell the buildings, or are we going to demolish them and haul them off?
There's really no value in selling them, and FEMA is paying for the demolition, so we just assume demolish them. Subject to a couple of the portables, apparently that aren't fiberglass buildings, that are portables that might be worth something, those we might sell. But otherwise, the fiberglass buildings aren't worth trying to sell.
FEMA's actually recommended the demolition as opposed to the sale.
Wow. Any other questions? Any opposed? Then the motion passes unanimously.
Discussion appropriate action in regard to proceeding with modification of daycare room 157 at South Platte High facility as needed to make it suitable for multi-purpose athletic needs, subject to final cost estimates from the architect and HO.
So offered.
Motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Mr. Swallow.
You received a copy of the estimate that we put together. There are some options. I think what we're saying is this is probably the biggest, best thing you could do with it, and we could pare back a little bit from there. If you want me to go through what the plan is.
If you can, yeah.
Right now, the daycare building, if you're looking at the sheet, the hallway that you're seeing down here is in the daycare. This area up here would be the main corridor out into the school. Across there would be the cafeteria and the outdoor eating area. there's a display case in that corridor. And what we're saying that could be done is we could make a new doorway that doesn't exist right here on each side of the display case. Those doorways could then, right now there's a wall between that separates, and there's 2 rooms here. And instead of being 2 rooms, we're saying that you could demo this wall, put a wall across this way, and end up with 3 rooms. You have one big, large room with a Mondo flooring type surface, which is the kind of cushiony floor that they have in weightlifting areas or exercise rooms, that sort of thing. Mondo flooring would be on the floor, and then this would reduce the size of the 2 daycare rooms down, and those rooms would be approximately 20 by 18. So the 20 by 18 is larger than a lot of people's living rooms. Ms. Kusan mentioned that that would be a good size that that the daycare could still utilize it if they had sick children or small group that they needed to isolate from the other kids, or if they had just a small group lesson going on. So the daycare still has use of those 2 rooms. The large room ends up being a little over 1,200 square feet, which is about the size of the house. And the approximate cost for this would be about $132,000.
Is FEMA going to pay for this transition?
Jim Tiedemann thought it might be possible. I can't comment on that. I think there's a possibility too, but somebody would need to ask that question.
Okay, any other questions? Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Monthly Head Start Budget. Mr. Ron White.
Miss Mummy's out of town, so she asked her assistant. You got any questions on the report?
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Mumby Stanton.
Thank you.
Thank you, then. Approval of board consent agenda.
So offered. Second.
Motion offered by Mr. Murray, seconded by Mr. Lemire. Any questions? Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. Information items. Do we have any information items?
Educator job fair this weekend.
Go ahead.
This weekend, Plaquemines Parish will be hosting a job fair right here at South Plaquemine High School. The job fair begins at 9 a.m. and ends at 2 p.m. You can register online going to the Plaquemines Parish School Board website. And we encourage any and all, and anyone listening to this announcement, if you have friends or family, please encourage them to apply to come work in our district.
Any other information items? Item 7, citizens' comments. Item 8, date, time, and location of the next meeting, April 14, 2014, at the Plaquemines Parish School Board Learning Center, Port Sulphur, 6 p.m. Item 9, motion for adjournment.
So offered, Mr. President.
Motion offered by Mr. Mertz, seconded by Ms. Landon. I'm definitely here. Any questions? Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.